the customer said he had flames out the carburettor, so there's obviously something wrong. So what I would do is check your tappets, check your valve clearances on there first, check your timing set up right, and then try and start it and see what happens with the carburation, and take it from there really. Right, so we did the forks, did the tank. That's all sealed up very nicely. There's no horrible goo coming out on the filter that you can see. Started it up and it was very smoky on the right hand side, so I phoned the owner and he said basically have a look at it because it could have been broken rings or something like that, but as it turns out the barrel and head weren't done up very tight and it's just leaking oil back down through. Okay. Into the bores. Left hand side still a little bit smoky, but he said it did smoke a bit. So that was all rebuilt yesterday. Got it all running alright, so I'm just going to try and start it from dead cold now. See what happens.
Anything different on the startup procedure on this at all?
No, you've got tickles on the carbs instead of primers on the Harleys and all that. So you tickle the carbs, so basically you just turn your fuel on. Let a bit run into the filter and then press these so you get a little tiny bit of fuel like that. So originally these had a single carb, it's been converted to twin carb because it's a 500. I'm going to try it on full choke first of all. It might be too much, but I just want to see what it will run like on full choke. Again from cold. Yeah, a lot of faffing around to get it to run right on the twin carbs, but once you get them right, they're nice. Easy. So that just needs a final wipe down, clean up, and that's good to go, mate.
That's really good.
Yeah, I'm pleased with it. It's come out well. Because I mean, it was smoking on the right hand side, heavily.
And if it was going to smoke, it would smoke pretty much straight away.
Oh yeah, it's just getting oil down the bores. What it is, the head gaskets on these originally were copper, and when you take them off, you heat them. It's called annealing. It just softens them up.
Yeah.
So when you put them back on, they squish into any grooves. But these are made out of some sort of solid graphite or something, and over the years, where it's been blowing carbon past them, it's built a gap up. So your oil that goes up to the rockers, basically is just running down the drain tube and getting sucked into the bore. So, but that seems to have solved it well. It's a 1945 WL civilian model. Being 1945, not a lot of chrome parts on it at all because of the end of the war effort. From what I can see, it looks pretty standard to me. It looks very good, nice restoration. They couldn't have built many of them, I wouldn't have thought.
Beautiful paint job as well.
Yeah, it's a nice paint job, yeah, he's made a bloody good job of that, yeah. They never made blue in 1945. It would have been grey, it's the only colour they did. But 46 they did skyway blue, or whatever it is. That's in the wrong place, but that doesn't matter. That should have another extended bit of wire that goes to that, and that goes on there. And locks off against the back of the battery box for a handbrake. I think they might be big twin forks because it's got the interchangeable wheels, which is what they would have done, I think, from what I can gather. Yeah, it's just a very nice job. So basically we've got to check the tappets, check the timing. Obviously it sounds like it's got a bit of a fuel leak, so we'll check that out. The customer said he had flames out the carburettor, so there's obviously something wrong. So what I would do is check your tappets, check your valve clearances on there first, check your timing set up right, and then try and start it and see what happens with the carburation, and take it from there really. Right, so just basically this is our check sheet that we use. We generally run through everything on that. Some of it I can do now, some you can't do until it's started and running, you know. Okay, so first on the list is front wheel and tyre. Well, the tyres are new, so there's no problem there.
What are you listening out for?
Just a difference in note, and you can tell if the spoke's loose or not.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with that, mate. That's been on there too long. Just hold the handlebars for me.
What, doing stiff?
Yeah. No playing with wheel bearings, so that's okay. So front wheel and tyre checked, yes. The tyres are new, so we haven't got an issue there. Slight play in rear wheel bearings, but that's nothing on one of these.
How much is acceptable, and when would you start thinking that's too much?
Well, like Malcolm's bike, remember that? It was donk, donk, donk. That's just got a little shimmy in it,
Okay.
you know. Because of the, do you remember me saying that the way the rear wheel bearings work, because they're not round, you don't do them up into a cone, they're flat. So you're always going to get a very, very slight bit in there, unless you shim it up absolutely perfectly, which they're never that critical, you know. Alright, front forks.
So again, what are you looking for there?
Just anything that's loose or any play. Normally your bar there, the shackle pins are normally worn out, but there's no clonk on that when you roll it or go backwards. Do you remember the other ones we've had? No,
yeah.
donk donk. No, that's all good. Right, handlebar controls. Right, going from idle to full throttle, okay. Getting full advance and full retard. Right, switches and lighting. Right, ignition on. Side lamp, headlamp, dip main, horn, rear lamp, brake lamp.
Yep.
Okay, dash illumination lamp is on, is off, is on, is off. Okay. Okay. Right, petrol tank taps and lines, we know that has an issue. Right, oil tank taps and lines, I noticed it's got this wrapped round there, so that's obviously leaking somewhere, so we've got to check that out, yeah?
Yeah.
General engine condition we don't know at the moment, general gearbox condition we don't know at the moment. Clutch condition. Got compression, so let's see if the clutch is working. The clutch is working, so we'll just put OK for the moment, yeah? Exhaust condition. It's been pinned. Loose. Doesn't look like it's blowing anywhere, does it?
Where would be the normal places it would be blowing?
You see carbon all round here. Anywhere it joins, there'll be carbon blowing out, but it looks in good condition. Seating. It's got a very low seat post in it. I don't know why that is, but
Could that be a preference thing?
oh yeah, definitely, yeah. But centre bush is gone. It's good rather. The seat bush is good. Yeah, all good. I think it's generally a very nice bit of kit, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right, foot controls. Bush is good on that. The others we've done were all flapping around.
God, yeah.
Right, that's all good. I didn't check the gear shift, did we? That's right, no playing that. Right, chains. I'd say if anything that rear chain's a bit too tight. That might need loosening off a bit. I'll just check the primary. Primary's okay.
What are you feeling for in there?
Just the right amount of movement. You want about half an inch on a primary, maybe a little bit more. But if you have them loose, they slap and they hit the chain case. But the back chain definitely feels a bit tight. Right, stands. Jiffy's okay. It's a repro stand, but I don't even like putting them on the rear stand. So, but it's not broken, it's not cracked, so we'll give that okay. Because they just fall off, they fall over. Right, battery condition, I'll check that later. Service required, but doesn't really need it, but we'll. MOT required, no. Lubrication we can check, and grease points we'll check as a final. So all in all, we've got carbs leaking, the oil tank's got a slight leak, rear chain a bit too tight, and that's it. Which is all good.
Very good.
So what we'll do now is see what we've got in the way of timing marks and tappets. Give him a ring. It looks like it could do with an oil change to me. Looks a bit dirty, doesn't it? But don't know how long it's been sitting, so. Nice and very tight.
Any harm doing them so tight?
Nah. Not unless you strip the threads, but they all leak anyway, so. That's a good old Harley trait.
So you always say that Harleys leak, but how much leaking is like too much leaking, do you think?
Nah, they don't all leak. It's just the way the crankcase ventilation and the misting in the primary chain side is designed. They will drip oil.
Yeah.
That's what they do. That's why there's a hole in the on the skid plates on the military ones. That's why there's a hole in the back to let the oil come out the skid plate.
And that's just for lubrication of the chain?
Yeah. That's too tight. Right, let's give it one more go on that back one. I will take it that they're probably adjusted up right, but we've just got to, at the moment all we want to do is make sure we're firing on the front cylinder, so. Right, I might have to leave that one for a minute. Right, let's put the plugs out. Right. That's firing on the front cylinder. That's on your timing mark there. Let's have a look in the hood and see if we can find that timing mark. Well, we're not far out, it's a little bit out, but not a lot. Okay, so let's bring him up to proper timing mark. Okay. That points gap is enormous. There?
Yeah.
That gap there should be 22 thousandths of an inch. That's about
6 inches.
yeah, not far off. Right, so I think we'll set it back here and we'll wind it over and we'll set that up again later, but let's just set our points. Yeah, it's miles too big. that affects the timing massively. I'll try and get it to stay open dead on its highest spot. That's about it, I think, isn't it?
That's it.
Always make sure you wipe the grease off your feeler gauges or oil, because it just gets on a point, so it just makes it a bitch to start. Good. Oh, that's a nice points gap there now. That should be on the firing stroke. See the thread's damaged.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to get those little bits of aluminium out of there. Well, all you can really do with that is, without stripping the engine down, is just put it in with some thread lock, dry it out, put it in with some thread lock. Right, so let's roll around again. See if we can see that. Nothing there. No. Okay. Exhaust valve, inlet valve opening, coming up to compression. Yeah, that's had the chain case mister blocked off. Let's look at that in a minute. Right. Right, timing mark. Yeah, see that screw in there? That's where your mister comes out. Controlled by, remember me showing you on the oil pump, the little tiny washers? You've got one to feed the rear chain oiler, which isn't on there. And that one there, that one, controls your misting into that chamber. But it ain't there. So basically what it is, the modern chains are much better than the old chains. So let's do our fag paper trick. And we're good there. Famous last words.
Yes.
And if you look at that, you've got a little tiny stamp mark there, look.
Yeah.
And that hole, that's basically as they would have lined it up from the factory. Because when you put this in, you can basically put that anywhere on the rotation of the cam underneath. Give it a try, I guess, mate. You really shouldn't do those up that tight, because the bottom of it, all it is a bar with a hole drilled through it.
Yeah.
It elongates that. It just f***s them up, basically. So you might have to get a new fuel rod, maybe. Right. Right, well, let's see what happens. Fuel's on. Full throttle. a little bit there, isn't it? Let's give it 2 notches down, being as it's so warm. That is strange.
What are you thinking?
Well, it's got to be timing. That should have gone first kick basically, so. Coil can't be out. It's definitely firing front cylinder. So we need to get that back timing cover off. Right. There's an issue already. That tappet is loose. Look. Right, see that?
Yeah.
That nut there should be locked down against that to stop that moving. So that is probably leaving the inlet valve open, or which obviously won't help. Did you hear when I was kicking it? It didn't sound like you're getting a double compression. It only sounded like you're getting one. So let's set those up properly. Apart from that one being out, which I doubt would do that, we should try again.
Oh, the plot thickens, huh?
Yeah. Right, well let's check the sparks. Can't see that. Tell me if that's plug sparking.
Nothing.
Plugs. And that sparked once and stopped. All the time.
That's right now, isn't it?
Yeah. Right. Okay. Where that inlet valve was basically stuck open,
Yeah.
with that tappet adjustment.
Yeah.
So it's sucking fuel in, filling up the barrel. Instead of it sealing on the compression stroke, it's blowing all of that fuel back out the carburettor, and then it sparks.
Ah, right, okay.
So that's what was blowing that out of there. Right, the carb is leaking like a good one, so we'll have to do that. But it runs. There's nothing wrong with that. That's all it was.
Good.
So solved the problem of why it was blowing flames out. We just got to now make the carburettor work properly.
Next week on the workshop.
So I'm hoping that I can learn, you know, a little bit about how to look after it myself. It's one of the reasons why I'm so pleased that Ash has let me come down for a couple of days, because I'm hoping he can just teach me the basics of, you know, checking the chain and, you know, general checks, picking up some of his knowledge and skills and his technical jargon, like this carburettor is totally bollocksed.
Yeah.